Welcome back to the Weekend Ball podcast. We are here today on a somber note as the Canadian women's national team has been eliminated from the Olympics. When you go 0-3 at the Olympics, yeah, you're not gonna make it to the next round. But Canada did have a lot to play for, and for a stretch in this game, they went up 10, and you're thinking, oh wow, that's the magic number. That's exactly what Canada needs to do to make the Olympics. And in the end they fell short, and we'll discuss kind of the what went wrong throughout this whole Olympic run for this team. And I think we shouldn't mince words. This was a disappointment, right? Y- y- this program obviously didn't make it out of the group in 2021 in Tokyo, but that was an abject failure, and it feels like this year it was another abject failure. It was a tough group. They always knew that, but yeah, I think that the way they won out and really not being, they were in these games, but outside of the France game, but they also weren't in many ways. So yeah, just I'm here joined by, I forgot to intro you, Matty. I think this is 7 a.m. brain talking, and for you it's 5:30 in the morning brain in Alberta. But the legend of Canada hoops, the one and only Matty Islands on the show. Just maybe take us through kind of your emotions and thoughts after Canada being eliminated from the women's basketball competition.
Yeah, it's a disappointing tournament. I think if, obviously you ask the players and the staff and the program, this is not what they envisioned. And those that, follow the program and support it would think so as well. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of, I think, self-reflection looking at, what they want to do and moving forward. And yeah, it was a tough group, Alex. I thought, give the other teams in the group credit. They came out when they matched up with Canada, they were really aggressive at taking it to them. I thought Nigeria was like super physical today, and it showed a lot in the game. And there's a lot more parity and improvement across other programs and federations in women's basketball in a short time, especially going from the Tokyo game. So you're starting to see that where other programs are building as well. So uh, yeah, tough tournament for the senior women's national team. Um, Man, the turnovers were killer, like in every game. They just, they were building and building, and next thing you know, they're at 20 turnovers, and it's just you're not going to win like that. And they had stretches where they shot, the shots were starting to drop, especially from three. Like Bridget and Shea were making some threes, but just not enough, and not enough depth offensively. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they address this moving forward for the women's team, man.
Maybe we should, start out by maybe giving some flowers to Natalie Achonwa. She's been the face of this program, for over a decade. It's crazy. This was her fourth Olympics. Was there in 2012 when the women's team finally broke out and made it to the Olympics. They made it to the quarterfinals too in 2012, and it just so cool to see her evolve. She's now a mother, right? They talked about it a lot on the broadcast, Ann Schulman and Megan McPeak, about just the mentorship she's given to so many of the young players, and even some of the players that are even in their prime, like Kia Nurse and Bridget Carlton. And um, it's a shame that it ended this way for her, because you know in many ways she deserved better. I don't think she had. I think her own play was up and down throughout the tournament. She had some stretches against Australia where she was just finding people backdoor, played really well, and then some stretches where she was a bit turnover prone. But overall, just I hope she's working with Canada basketball in some capacity, or coaching, or maybe with the new WNBA team. Like she deserves some sort of role in the game of basketball in this country for how much she's done. She was really the first WNBA player kind of in the last decade to kind of be a consistent player in the league. And then you see Kia Nurse, and now you see Bridget Carlton, and she was really the first influx. Not that there weren't WNBA players from Canada before, but kind of a steadying presence. And yeah, just really sad. It was just, a sad day, I think, for Canada basketball fans. And I can't imagine the emotions that were going through her mind.
Yeah, and it's been well documented, and she's a leader, and the other players really look up to her, and she's an inspiration, and what she's done for this program and the game, like you've said, in the country, and when you're around the team and around them, you get a total sense of that, how much she is leader on and off the floor, and how much they admire her, and what she has done for this program with the four Olympic appearances, and just a steady influence and a presence. And it's pretty cool that the young players that were part of this team in Paris, like a Silas Ord and Cass Prosper, get to run alongside them at this get to run alongside Natalie at this point in their career. And um, hats off to Nat. I'm sure some things are gonna really come her way in the game post playing, and rightfully so, like you said. And I know in the past she's talked about really wanting to be a coach as well, and I think she would be tremendous at that. And yeah, tough for her to finish this way, and nothing but the best for Natalie moving forward for sure.
Maybe, with like maybe when you take a step back and you look at maybe the failure of this tournament, Maddie, like what do you see as kind of maybe the problems? Like for me, it's really the lack of guard depth of shot creators, right? And if you look at the games, our friend Adam, who was on the show for the men's game on against Spain, he tweeted out, right, Canada in all three games shot below 35% from the field, had on average almost, I think, over 20 turnovers a game. They had 26 today. Um, they just, Shea Colley had 11 turnovers, which is just as well as she did in many regards on offense, she also was giving the ball up left and right. It just felt as though Canada just had no way to get easy offense. And in this game, when they went on that run, when they went up 10, they were just scoring at a decent clip. They weren't blowing you know, the doors off Nigeria. They just were scoring at least a little bit. And then it all fell apart in that third quarter. Like Canada struggled in many other against France and even against Australia, right? Getting outscored 23-5, and they just threw the ball away, couldn't get anything going. And I thought that their defense was fine throughout the whole tournament. You could quibble here and there, but they just could not score enough. And that's been the problem with this team. That was the big worry heading into this tournament, and it was exposed. And I think moving forward, I'm not as worried about maybe this team in 3-4 years from now. I think with the injection of talent coming through the team, but there is no real clear point guard of the future on this team, and I think that's what they really desperately need.
Yeah, they just lack that real like offensive punch where okay, like they're gonna they can make a bit of a run, but it wasn't like a dominating run to really close a game out, or punish a team and really like just wreck a team during the game. And the turnover battle was just so bad every game. Just you're not going to win like that if you're going to shoot a low percentage to combine with that. Then um, you know the L's are going to stack up really quickly. And yeah, they struggled to just get easy hoops, man. Like, anything when they were scoring or getting runs, it was, from deep typically. And I think it, it's weird because like 2 years ago when they're at the World Cup and they finished fourth, and um, they were really good defensively, and that was Victor LaPeña's real first big tournament moment with the women's national team as a head coach. And you're looking at this and you're like, okay, wow, this is a good result. And um, the team is not much different from then. And yeah, it'd be, I don't think Victor earlier in the tournament, I thought in moments like I thought maybe he was like out of his depth in situations, but seeing as the results as a whole, like I don't feel that way anymore. I think it's just the players struggled and couldn't deal with some of the pressure of the other teams, and they tried to implement that themselves defensively, and it worked in some moments. But um, yeah, the turnover thing, very glaring, and maybe lack of point guard depth. Nair Fields was battling some type of injury and the minutes were
And
low, she would
and
be somebody that would spell some of that. She just didn't play enough.
and
Uh,
And
Go
maybe
ahead.
going off that, like I thought when she came in today, Canada went on a run with that bench, right? Nigeria goes up 12-2, Naira Fields comes in and then they're back up, right? Against Australia, Naira Fields plays a bit, they go on a little run, they score. And not that Naira Fields has been such a great trooper for this program for so long, but just like someone that can beat a press, make a decent pass, make the right reads, not turn over the ball, and everything clicked for Canada, right? Um,
Right.
and I don't know why. I don't really understand how Naira Fields could play. I'll check up the box score, but limited minutes at all, and then not play more. She only played 11 minutes today. And she was 0 for 4 from the field, but she was a +1. And if you
Like
look
if
at
she can play her more. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
and then the
clearly
thing
she's able to get
that
on the floor, then play her more.
yeah, and the starters were essentially all minus Bridget Carlton -17, Kia Nurse -10, Shea Colley -10, Kayla
Mhm.
Alexander -15, and then everyone else is like even, give or take, right? And as good as Shea Colley was offensively today, just 11 turnovers is five too many, six too many, right? And against France, she was exposed, and I'm not blaming her. I think ideally she's really a combo guard, not a point guard. Um, and that's the thing with Canada is that they need to find that point guard of the future. I like Silas Swords a lot. I thought she actually played really well in her minutes. Sometimes she was a bit overmatched, but it didn't feel like, oh, she's too, this is the moment got to her too much, or that she didn't really make any threes, which was a bit disappointing, but I thought she, for the most part, made the right reads, but she's not really a natural point guard. She's more a shooting guard, right? So,
Right.
um, I think that's
She's
the
kind of a midget. She's a midget,
yeah.
mini Bridget Carlton there.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
even yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
um, I think that's where the problems stem from was their offense, and that was the biggest question heading in was can they score enough? And the answer was flatly no. And I think Victor LaPena, it's interesting, he in the second half took out Achanwa um and Nurse
Yeah.
for Swords and Edwards, and I didn't think that was the best. I thought Sammy Hill in her minutes played really well. I didn't really understand why she didn't get much more play, especially the fact that Canada struggled with their point guard play. And I thought Aaliyah Edwards, she brings it on defense, but I still think offensively, very turnover prone. I think she's pretty raw offensively, and if she's the one big maybe, but her along Alexander or Chanwa, it just didn't really make a lot of sense. And I think Victor, if he should have tried to maybe go a bit more offense heavy, which he kind of did in spurts, but. Yeah, I think, we talked about it before. This roster just didn't make a lot of sense on the court. A good collection of talent, but as a team, the pieces don't really match up well. We have so many front court players. I thought Amahir played really well today and much more controlled than she typically is, where she can get very much deer in the headlights with the ball, and but I thought she was much more controlled, and that was a nice little spark to see. Just another young player playing decently well.
Yeah, there's pieces that are on this team that are moving forward going to be, key players for the program, no doubt. And it's kind of a roster of two stories and two situations of, players um that make up, this group. So um there's some bright spots moving forward, no doubt. And it comes with time and experience. They're going to be looking at um the next Women's World Cup is in Germany in 2 years in 2026. So that's the next major competition. And, 2 years to have everyone work on their game and see where the program moves forward. And yeah, they just could not get like anything going in the block and in the paint for Kayla. Like when, over the last, close to a year when they've competed in qualifying tournaments, Kayla had been their best player on both ends with scoring the ball and rebounding, and um, she was really good in Hungary in the qualifying tournament, and they just couldn't get, good situations for her on the block. Not just today, but throughout the whole tournament. That was, you know, a situation that was, hurting them too, and she couldn't get going with the ball. So, yeah, they'll be tearing it down, I'm sure, and looking ahead to see what they got to work on. And obviously the game just ended, but you're always kind of trying to address issues. And um, there's players on this roster today that like Natalie's probably played her last game, like everyone knows, and see about some others moving forward. And there's players coming up the pipelines for the program that are very good and are going to have a say about making teams down the road. And Canada basketball has done a good job of already including them with the senior women's team in different spots too. So, um, yeah, I think they have a good idea of where they want to go move forward.
Do you think maybe we're also transitioning a little bit from where the women's team was that top five, six, seven team in the world, and I think the world has kind of caught up with them. You look at Germany playing so well, Belgium, uh,
Yeah,
obviously France, Nigeria, right? Winning two games, Australia, right? That maybe we're at a point where Canada, like we need to kind of change the way we look at this program as not being maybe a top five program in the world, but maybe closer to the 9, 10 mark. And hopefully that changes, right? I'm not saying that we're doomed, what, right? Like was it the U17 team just won the bronze or the silver medal at the FIBA, U17 World Cup?
yeah.
Like there's a lot of young talent coming up. But maybe for, the next 4 or 5 years, as the rest of the world's kind of caught up that Canada is maybe slipping that way. And as we've seen with the men's team, maybe the men's team is going to kind of change places a little bit with the women's team where they're the not the dominant team because obviously there's the USA and other good ones, but that are kind of in that 3, 4, 5 best teams in the world, while the women are maybe kind of still should be making Olympics, but maybe shouldn't be expecting to do much at them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, teams within programs that happens, right? You kind of take dips and then rise again. And to make four straight Olympics for the senior women's national team is tremendous, and nothing to be ashamed of for sure. And yeah, they um might see the kind of more of a realistic ranking after this, obviously. And like you said, man, the rest of the world is, building and improving their programs. And um I think this tournament was a definite reflection of that. This was a tough group to be placed in, as much as the men have been highlighted for how tough their group was. This was a tough group for the women, and France is going to be a tough opponent at home, and Australia is typically a good program and a bit of a power. And um, hats off to Nigeria. Like they took it to Canada today, and they played a good tournament. And yeah, there's like moving forward, there's like that U19 group. They were really good last summer for
Yep.
Canada, and a lot of those players are now starting their first um, and even second year, I guess, now with Cass Prosper, um, in the NCAA. And there's some serious players coming through. So, the program knows that. They've included a lot of them already um, with the senior women's national team. So, um, yeah, it's going to happen for programs, and this is kind of maybe their spot. And they've kind of
Yeah.
rode this peak kind of as long as they can, and now we're starting to see it plateau, and we'll see it come down a bit. And there's still some veterans on this team that are going to be no doubt part of the team in 4 years in Los Angeles. You think about like a Bridget Carlton for sure. She'll be your key player, your key vet. She's still their best player, in my opinion. So,
And you know what?
um,
On Bridget Carlton, right? She's, I think, 27, 28. I'll pull it
oh,
up.
27.
27, yeah.
Yeah.
She'll be only 31, which isn't, especially the way modern medicine and everything, that's not that old for a basketball player, especially if you're a shooter. I thought, you can quibble with maybe the percentages, but I thought she had a really good tournament outside. Even the France game, I think that was the only game where it was a bit of a dud, but against Australia, she was great. I thought today she was great. Really a one-woman show for a lot of times for Canada, and you could really see when she just got a little bit of help, just a little bit of, the ball finding her in the right positions. She was deadly. And I think her rise in the WNBA is really a great sign. I think the sad thing is, and I'm not trying to count out Kia Nurse's career, but I think we're, unfortunately seeing kind of, the the turn in her career, right? And she didn't make a shot today. Had a lot of really good looks. Just wasn't really able to create her own shot. And I'm not trying to put out a narrative, but she was a WNBA All-Star 3, 4 years ago, tears her ACL and really hasn't been kind of at that same level. Maybe, I know she had a good start to the WNBA season, so maybe there's a nagging injury. Like you never know. But the fact of the matter was she was really, really poor in this tournament. And if we had like a half decent Kia Nurse, I think Canada could have easily gone 2-1 in this um, in this group. And that really was one of the problems was just that they didn't get enough scoring and Kia Nurse didn't score like she's capable of, like she has in the past. And Canada will either need to replace her or hopefully, in 4 years from now, her everything's good with her and she's playing at an elite level. She's still pretty young. She's I think 28 or something like that. She's not she'll still be kind of in her early 30s by the end of the by next Olympic cycle. But it's just sad because she was really she is and was the face of the program. And I think just her play has kind of gone down significantly and that kind of changes things. But she's been such a great player for Canada over years. So I'm not trying to begrudge her. She's had two bad Olympics, one amazing Olympics in 2016 where they really should have made it to that semifinal. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I just thought a Kia Nurse kind of discussion was warranted.
Yeah, and I think, her play in the tournament and no lack of scoring was just indicative of the team and just not, because of the high turnover, just not getting an opportunity to like get rhythm, get flow, get any momentum going. They just could not, make like big runs and really punish teams. And um, that, the lack of scoring from Kia, I just thought was, you know, a perfect picture of what was really going on for this team offensively. They really struggled, and you're going to need her to contribute and produce to get wins, right? You can't just rely on one player. Bridget did everything she could, and Bridget needs others to create for her to get looks. So yeah, no, we'll see what happens for Kia moving forward. I know she would don't be the first one to say she would disappoint, I'm sure, in the tournament and her play and uh, her minutes. And yeah, she's been a
You want
staple and such a big piece that you're not going to point the finger at her too much because without her, they're not getting to the situation either. And yeah, it'd be interesting, man.
maybe we should talk about LaPena because you kind of alluded to it where in 2022 you're like this is the right man for the job. He got them to score enough to be an elite defensive team and make the semifinals of the World Cup. And now, obviously, a really disappointing Olympics. Like, how much do you think this is on him and his coaching, and maybe compared to maybe the players?
Yeah, like after the first two games with France and Australia, I was like, yeah, I don't know, like the lineups and some of the rotations weren't really making sense. I know he was like in those first two games trying to, create some energy and some spark with some of the bench players coming in. And at times they did do that. You look at like Sammy Hill. Um, no, I thought Sammy was good against Australia and then just didn't get minutes today. Um, I'm not sure where I'm at on Victor. Like, I don't want to say it. I thought initially like was kind of out of the depth, but I just think given the lineup and sort of the roster he had, this is probably maybe the result. It's interesting that um, when he got hired and identified as their next coach, like when Canada basketball and my understanding, at least with Tomitis and Canada basketball, was a mutual decision to step down and part ways, and now he's just done a really good job with the German national team, right? So, and then sometimes that's just a change of scenery and a new
Yeah.
look or whatever. And um, I'm not gonna say one way or other about Lisa or Canada basketball. So, um, Victor's a good coach. I do believe that, and I know the program believes that. I don't think um, there's doubts from the program right now. It's timing, it's the matchups, it's the roster. I think Victor probably did the best he could, and you start to listen when you're in that moment and you're on the sideline and your team's starting to get crushed a little bit, and now you're down 15, 16 points, and now you're starting to, no matter who you are as a coach, you're starting to maybe panic or struggle a little bit in your role, and you start doing some substitutions that we look at and you're like, well, okay, what's going on here? But you're just trying to create some energy some way and get something going. And I think, that's probably his attempt to do that, right? So um no, Victor's starting his um pro job here this fall. He didn't coach anywhere last season, so he's doing that. And there's some time here now. You don't have like major competition coming up after a tournament like this, so things are going to get evaluated. And um, yeah, I don't think Victor's a major issue for this women's team. I just think, um, in a lot of ways, he probably did the best he could, really.
Yeah. And I think maybe he was a bit hamstrung because I think Canada's best runs in this tournament were when Kia Nurse and Nada Chama were off the court, right? And those are two staples of the program, and it's managing, I'm not saying they're big egos, but it's a big decision, right? And you saw that in the end, and maybe he needed to do that earlier, although Nigeria went on an 11-0 run. Maybe he put in the wrong players in that case. I think Sammy Hill had a really good tournament and she should have got more run. I didn't really understand the Naira Fields like in and out and not really having a clear role. Um, I thought he went, to players maybe not looking as much for the offensive spark as he should for lineups that could maybe score a little bit because that was Canada's problem. But overall, I think you can't teach shooting, right? Canada went 5 of 26. You can't teach, good playmakers, right? Like, do you go and say Victor Lefpena is the reason Shea Hawley had 11 turnovers today? That seems a bit unfair to me. Um,
Right.
so I think overall, yeah, did he have a good tournament coaching? No. Like that they lost all 3 games. They didn't play well, particularly. So I don't think this was a good tournament. And I could understand if Canada went the other way. But I also, if someone's saying, well, this is on the coaching, I find that a bit too strong, right? It was a it was a multitude of things that led to the demise of this team during this tournament, and coaching was part of it. But if I was going to pick one main reason, I wouldn't be saying, oh, the coaching staff was bad. I think just, in international basketball, you can't really pick your talent. You can't pick who's on your team. And with this, right, like Kia Nurse had a bunch of open threes today, missed them, right? They had good looks at times in this game and just didn't make enough shots. Shea Hawley made a couple, but they went 5 of 26 from three, I believe, right? So like how much is that on the coach? I don't know. Yeah, right. 19% from three. If they go 9 of 26, they might win this game,
Right.
right? So I think overall, he couldn't teach them to score. He couldn't teach them to be good shooters, right, and make their shots. And I thought overall, yeah, not I would quibble with a lot of the lineups at certain points. At the same time, I don't think um, this was the main area of concern, but it's going to be interesting. We know the CEO pretty well. I do think, in Mike Bartlett, who's been, I think, really, really good for this program. And I think he's going to have a really tough decision this summer because you will have to make a decision as to is Victor the right coach to lead this team moving forward? Is it time for a new voice? I don't think we're going to probably find out anything immediately. I'd be shocked if tomorrow or next week we hear that he got fired. Um, but I do think that will be a big decision for Michael Bartlett and the people at Canada Basketball as to who is the right coach for this team. Because you see his first year was amazing, A plus, and the past really 2 years has been, I'd say, like a C minus. So it's how you evaluate it. It's going to be a different group of, it'll be a very different team, right? It's going to be a lot of young players. Like 2028 is going to be a very young team. Hopefully they make the Olympics, but regardless,
Right.
it's going to be a bunch of 23, 24-year-olds. And is Victor the right coach for them? I could see him being the right coach, but it's going to be a very different complexion of this roster. And it will be fascinating to see what Canada Basketball does because they do have a pretty big decision on their hands.
Yeah, when they, barely qualified in February out of the qualifying tournament in Hungary, I thought that was an opportunity, and there was talk of it too, like, okay, we just got in, we survived this, and they recognized how fortunate they were. It had to, be the result of another team to do that. So, in a short window going from February to now, like I was looking for some type of, you know, obviously motivation just to say, okay, yeah, we're here, and we got a good opportunity to be in our fourth straight Olympics. But I was looking for some little tweak to be, to show me that there was some type of improvement, some type of new look or energy with this group that going into this to kind of seize the moment because they barely got in, right? So it just wasn't there. And yeah, I agree with you. Like in 4 years' time, it'll definitely be a younger team, and maybe with that approach and what Victor likes to do defensively, maybe he is the right person with a different looking roster. And so I'm sure Canada basketball has probably looked at that too, and um, knowing that the next cycle, because they've talked about how important the cycle and the games for Los Angeles are on both sides, men's and women.
Yeah, because we'll be
So
there.
with that, yeah, yeah, right. So with that in
They're
mind,
just
like,
prepping for us, Matty. It's
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
big Olympics. They need to make sure Adams
yeah,
and Ireland are there and in good
yeah.
spirits with something
So
to shoot for.
I think they recognize like those are obviously important Olympic games, and um, the roster is going to look really different. And Victor may or may not be the coach. We'll see.
Maybe with that, just kind of where is the future, to end off, where is the future of this program? What it doesn't even have to be bright spots, just in reality, where is this program going?
Well, they get a little time to kind of really address things here, and the World Cup in 2026 in Germany will be, uh, a next level to see where, the women's team is at and who's going to be on that team. So there's obviously like core pieces from this team here in Paris that'll be part of that team. But I really like some of the young players and uh, people that follow the program are aware of them, and uh, that U19 level. Um, I like Avery Howell a lot. Um, I think she's going to be someone that the program can really use moving forward. She needs more experience. She's starting her first year at USC uh, now this fall, so um, she's kind of like a hybrid. Kia Nurse, Bridget Carlton, she can shoot it. Um, and she's a smart player. Um, yeah, there's going to be some young players that I think people are going to be very excited about. You look at Sila and Cass, probably Yvonne, Leah. Yeah, sorry, Toby Fournier. There's some other ones that are going to come into their camps and push for spots, right? And That's a good thing, man. Like the talent's there, and
And
uh, to be a new look for the program, and programs turn over, and you get new blood in there, and that's a natural thing. And it happened on the men's side too. And look at where the men are at too. So, um, I think people should be excited about that. We've had some staples for the women's team for a long time that um, gotten their due, and rightfully so. But the new blood coming in is going to be really fun and really exciting, and I know the program's excited about that. And I think Canada basketball fans will be very excited as well.
I think with that, just having 2 years to have players grow and get older, like Silas Swords at 20 will be much better, I'd imagine, than Silas Swords at 18. Same with Cass Prosper. Um, it's Aaliyah Edwards, Yvonne Edgem, even a Bridget Carlton.
Yeah,
Overall, obviously, I think Kayla Alexander was such a good player. I thought, she maybe struggled a bit compared to her Olympic qualifying tournament. But overall, I thought she was one of Canada's best players throughout the whole tournament. So there's going to be places where Canada will improve. Um, I don't know if this team will be as good defensively in a couple years, but they probably will be a bit better offensively. And that's their Achilles heel. Like in the way women's basketball, men's basketball is played, there's so much talent, there's so much scoring, right? And if you can't score, it's over, right? And we saw that with this group. So the future is bright. I do worry about where the whole collective game of women's basketball will be in 2 years and in 4 years, right? Because it just feels like the whole world is catching up. And even if Canada gets better, it's like, well, if everyone else has got this much better and you've got that much better, you're still worse, right?
right.
So it'll be interesting. But still a lot of talent. They still should be maybe not contenders, but a decent team at the World Cup, a decent team, hopefully at the next Olympics, and we'll see where kind of the ships or where the chips lie. But just overall, a really disappointing tournament, right? It could have been much better. They could have easily been 2-1, and you're singing Kumbaya, and they're gonna play a Spain or a decent team in the next round, and that's not the case, right? They're out, and no one to blame but themselves. They just didn't play well, and it's a shame because I think you look at the men's side and how much momentum that team has right now, going 3-0 and making it to the quarterfinals. And I don't think that the expectations were the same for both programs, but just having them fall in their face is not good and not helpful, and just sucks because I would have loved a fun quarterfinal, maybe even a sneaky run to the semifinals and see where you're at, and that won't be the case. But overall, it's been great chatting with you, Matty. Yeah, go for it.
No, no, just it's I mean, real interesting like comparison with the men's and women's program. Like, um, they both had tough groups and pivotal second games against Australia for both sides. And I thought that Australia game obviously was one the women needed to win, and they were right there. They had opportunities, and we'd be looking at a different maybe storyline today against Nigeria. But yeah, no, it's you know, the women's team has some work to do, and they're gonna tear it down in a sense and have a good look at this. And I don't think they've taken for granted over the last 12 years, if you will, just kind of how good they've been and consistent and steady. But they've rode that out, and that's not an easy thing to do for that length of time with how competitive the game is and how other programs improve. But they've done a good job of being one of the elite programs in the world. But it's time to address some things and build it back up again, man.
Well, I've really enjoyed our ride together covering, the women's team, Maddie, and hopefully we'll keep doing it a bit with, the men's moving forward. But
Yeah, it's been fun.
thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. And everyone should shout out and check out Matt's or podcast just because he has like essentially everyone on the women's team there. So if you want to hear their stories, check out Canada Hoops. It's a great podcast. And just if the great thing about this team is there's a lot of great ladies and women on the team with great stories, and just even myself talking to Sila and Yvonne, who you've talked to, just how infectious their personalities are and how heart warming and just kind and funny, and it just the future is bright for this team off the court and hopefully on the court as well. And yeah, everyone check out Matty's podcast. And thanks, Matt, for taking the time and doing this. And hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks, Alex.